If there were a place in the world where you could store and protect the truth, it might be deep in the Rockies, in a field, on a ranch, in a silo, where an American patriot tells you what keeps him awake at night. Now, here is Medal of Honor recipient Drew Dix and words from the Silo.
Welcome, folks, to episode 9 of Words from the Silo. You know, we finished episode 8 on leadership, gunfighter style, and we got a lot of feedback in there. So I think what we should do in the future, Brad, is maybe have a whole episode on some of that great footage that you have about Hank, and we can introduce it, and because people need to know about that. So
yeah, that'd be
I want
a good
to pass
idea.
that on.
Sure, that'd be a great idea. So what are we talking about today?
Well, today we're going to talk about something that really does keep me up all night, and this momentum that's building on anti-Semitism. I can't even figure it out, Brad, and maybe you can help me. Maybe some folks will call in and help us. But I'm hearing about all that's going on, like in our Ivy League schools, or protesting and stuff about against the Jews. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? And so maybe we can answer our questions, and maybe I can get some sleep tonight.
Yeah.
The questions that we have. But so recently we've been hearing where they're bringing pressure on some of the Ivy League schools about not corralling the pro-Palestinians.
Yeah.
That are doing everything from blocking the Jewish students from moving around and all that. And to me, that's illegal to do that. And why don't we just arrest them and break them up and let everybody go to school and do what they do?
Well, that would make sense.
Yeah, it'd make too damn much sense. But so here it is, a little history, and I'm probably wrong on some dates, but following World War II, after the Jews were persecuted by the Nazis, and so many of them were executed, they carved out a little piece of land in the wilderness called Palestine, and gave it to the Jews to have a place to go of their own. So that's where it's all about that now. So I guess they wanted to go there in 1948 or whenever that was. But they did, and they got it, and they carved a pretty damn successful little piece of country out of that wilderness.
And it wasn't developed.
Oh, there's
in
nothing
1948.
there.
What was there?
I mean, I think they just landed on the beach, and there it was.
Yeah.
And so let's look at the cause. Okay, so first of all, and maybe I don't run into the circles to cover everybody, but I have no one that I know that says, yeah, those Jews can't have, we got to get rid of them. No one says that.
No, me either.
And I think that's the way the majority of the people are, because we're freedom of religion in this country. I mean, that's basically what we stand for, and freedom of speech and all that, and freedom to practice your religion, your culture, or whatever. So what's the cause? Is the cause because they symbolize success? Like they focus on a lot of the white people in this country. They were going after the white people because of success, maybe. I don't know. I'm looking for answers. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that's the cause. And maybe that's what it was in World War II, that they had to create the Nazis had to create a target element to go after so they could justify going in these surrounding countries of Germany to eliminate that. I don't know. But they did round them up and were killing all they could. And unless this is some what would you call it, information that I'm victim of, that the Jews were successful and were cliquish and doing things their own way. Maybe that's what I've kind of thought that the Germans were thinking.
Okay.
And they were against them for that. I don't know. You'd be against somebody that's successful. I don't think the Jews ever wanted to take Germany over, or Poland, or them. I don't know.
No.
I don't think so.
No, I think it was exactly like it seems, which is that they were persecuted.
They were persecuted for whatever reason. I think the reason is they resemble everything that's opposite of what the folks they're targeting to go after them. They have more than you have, and they got it some other kind of way, and so they need a cause to disrupt the normal day-to-day operation. So let's get back to these universities. We got these students that are from other countries coming here, and if I have to go by what I hear in the news because I'm not there on the campus, but it sounds like that there are Palestinian and maybe some other of the Muslim countries that are anti-Jews, and they're causing these riots and this unrest. And these students aren't citizens of the United States.
Right.
Why are we letting them do that?
Well, I think that goes back to the thing you started at the first with all the freedoms that you're rewarded in this country to protest and do things. I think they're monetizing that in a way to garner a platform to spew the hatred and what I would perceive as hatred towards Jews, but they're exposing our freedoms of speech and hiding behind freedom of speech.
I think in this case I think there's some outside influence. And I don't think it's outside influence to support necessarily the Palestinians against the Jews because of the war over in Israel and Palestine or Gaza. What I'm thinking is there's outside influence using this scenario to create unrest within our society. Like we had a lot of unrest in the 60s with the racial issue, and some of that it certainly was justified because we had to get into the civil rights and clean that up.
I could remember during Beyond the Metal when you said that when you talked about the protests of the Vietnam War at the time and people beating up off-duty soldiers and things, and you didn't understand it. So you kind of came through something like that as through those movements too, which weren't even civil rights necessarily. It was just anti-war protesting, and so you have some experience.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what's happening here is that we've got outside influence trying to disrupt the daily life in the United States over an issue that 90% or more of the citizens don't have an opinion over other than what maybe they're hearing. Mm-hmm. They don't have opinion. I'm a Jew hater, right? I don't think we got these people like that. Yeah. There's some, maybe, I won't say never, but so we got an outside influence that is agitating, using these Palestinians or students to get this fire fanned. So we have internal unrest.
So when they manipulate the students, they're looking for a cause maybe, and now the cause is this, and they might not even know what the cause really is.
Every student wants to have an identity and a cause, so they're an easy mark to get fired up. This is a little different than the story, but I remember I went to the Dom Rep in '65, had that little war down there with the 82nd, and we took care of business. A few days was over. So now in 1970, I'm back in Vietnam, and I was sitting around with some of my soldiers, all draftees, few joined, but most of them draftees. There was this one young guy that was about 18, 19, Hispanic, and I said, and he was quiet. We were talking about, someone asked me about my experience in combat, and I told him about Dom Rep, and he got real quiet. And I said, what's your deal? Where are you from? And he didn't want to answer me. I said, what the hell is wrong with you? You know, it's pretty insolent to to not answer your company commander. He said, well, I'm from Dominican Republic. And I said, oh, what side were you on? I'm being a little, it was friendly, the conversation. What side were you on, you know? Yeah. And boy, he took that serious. He said, well, I said, well, tell me the deal. I'm interested. He said, well, you know, I was 15 or 16 years old, whatever it was, 15 maybe. And he said, it was with a bunch of guys, and we were talking and joking, and you know, we get, some of us down there in that country get all together, we get all fired up, right? You know, and somebody backed up a truck and started unloading rifles, and I just handing them out. And all of a sudden now I'm armed, and so now I have to fight because I'm armed. And I said, well, that makes sense. You didn't even know who you were fighting with? No, he didn't even know that the Cubans had infiltrated the Dominican Republic and were influencing the military. But so my point is, here's a young guy that was fired up because, well, he says, you know, us Latins can kind of get, you know, fired up over nothing sometimes. That's what he said. I'm not making this up. It was kind of funny. He's a neat guy, good soldier. And said when I handed that gun, now he's got a gun. Yeah. It's kind of...
Well, it's appropriate for this discussion because he got engaged or enabled and didn't really know what he was enabled for, and certainly didn't know the optics, the macro optics of it.
Yeah, no. So here it is. We got, you know, I think the administration is doing right, holding funding back from Harvard and some of those other schools that are not cracking down on these students. There's people on student visas that have expired causing this problem. Why can't we just send them back? They're expired.
Well, I know a couple of students that go to an Ivy League school and they've been living through it these last few years, and it's scary. You know, they're walking around and they're just trying to get to class and do what they're there to do, and it's a distraction, really. It's a distraction,
well, yeah.
and it's scary.
Well, and here's the danger of that. So you got a student that's not Jewish, it's not a Muslim or Palestinian. It's just a regular student there, but they get mixed up in it, and somebody thinks they're Jewish, or they are a pro-Jewish that is a victim of anti-Semitism. Do you have a definition or something?
Yeah, I was going to pull that up because that made me think of the definition of anti-Semitism from the U.S. Department of State. And it reads, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals, which you were kind of just talking about, and or their property, toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities.
So that's the danger of this. That definition right there falls in right into I'm not a conspiracy guy at all. It's the conspiracies are just entertaining discussion sometimes, but what vulnerabilities are and potential avenues is where I'm looking at. So if they're going after non-Jewish people in an anti-Semitic way, then where does that limit? Just to a few, or is it a larger group of people that they can identify as supporting of Jews? And right now, if you ask me, The vast majority of the people in the United States have nothing against the Jewish people for being Jewish.
Right.
Period.
Nor should they.
Nor should they.
Nor should they.
Yeah. And so, without a doubt, you have to agree that they're very successful people. They've in what, 50, 60 years, what is that, 50, 60, 70 years now. I guess the time's really flying. It does when you get older. But 48, nothing but a desert, just like eastern Colorado somewhere out there, maybe even worse than that, shifting sand. And they brought in water, they irrigated, and they're manufacturing hub in that part of the world for some products, and have an economy. And what is really amazing is the population of Israel. It's not 10 million, I don't think, total, and that's 6 million or so Jews, and the rest aren't.
Yeah.
It's
a world power.
It's a world power, and so the
success.
Yeah,
success once again.
They're after that. I think it's a political of some sort, not Democrat-Republican political, but an effort to demonize a segment of the population to focus our energy against a successful.
What are the challenges that Israel has with this war they're in with Hamas, who would be considered, I guess, a gang of some sort, or whatever you want to call them, and then just how they're integrated into that Gaza Strip, which makes it very difficult to win without collateral damage?
Well, when you think about it, in my opinion now, the Israelis have put themselves in harm's way, danger, by protecting Palestinians and Jews alike, right? They letting them live in their own little place and doing their thing, and it unfortunately, with outside influence, the Hamas. I don't think it's all Palestinian. I think it's Hamas, the arm of Iran, that was able to inflict a surprise attack on Israel. Well, even though Israel took care of business, they were still held back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They held back when maybe they shouldn't.
So that type of warfare is what we've been seeing. That's what ISIS, how they fight, and that's how Taliban fought, I guess. Seems like that's a new sort of warfare. I mean, is it similar to Viet Cong in a way? Or?
No, the Viet Cong were totally military, and they did some terrorist activities. In fact, I was part of a counter-terrorist program, but they terrorized the citizens in order to get them recruited. I know very few cases where they just attacked women and children for the hell of it. I don't know of any, actually. They would certainly bring pressure on their families if they're men, and they only recruited men, drafted them into the Viet Cong. But we're talking about a country, get back to Israel, we're talking about a country is half the size or less than half the size of the population of New York City.
Yeah.
We got several cities with 6-8 million people in them.
Sure.
And we're talking about maybe less than 10 million, and they're not all fighting males. There's children, there's old people. What's the fighting force? It can't be that much. They can't continue to fight a war, a long-term war like we've gotten ourselves into a couple of times. They have to do something pretty soon.
So infiltrating the United States with a lot of whatever they're trying to do to win over minds, and powers trying to get the United States to pull support from Israel, which then would be hurtful to Israel.
Oh, that's what I think is happening.
That's the tactic?
That's the tactic, and that is the only thing that makes sense to me, because there's not a whole bunch of people around just hating Jews.
Right.
I mean, they just don't.
Yeah.
Because, and in fact, you can't tell people by looking at them what their religion is around this day and age, you know.
So what can the United States do to counteract this hatred that's going on and this campaign or this propaganda that's being spread?
Well, it's what the United States should do and what they can do. It might be two different things because the judges and the courts are taking the high road on this freedom of information stuff, freedom of rights, which I totally believe that's what we fought for. But they're carrying it too far. They're giving troublemakers and those not even citizens protecting them in the courts. But I think the administration is doing a great job, and I think the Department of Education, who probably has the connection to the higher education, needs to just cut off funding for those universities. Their endowments are huge.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need the money, and it's our money.
Right.
I mean, when they get an endowment of so many billions of dollars, and some of them are 30, 40 billion, I think, that's money that was given to them tax-free.
Yeah.
So somebody else had to pay for that. And what they get out of that education, I don't know, but I think the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Education, and the immigration folks are homing in on them. And I think we got to figure out how we can get these the judges out of the political side of this thing, and it's what's the big problem. So the outside influence is fueling this dark side, this fabricated villainization of Jewish people. They're not even too much of that. They're just saying that they're against Jews because of the war, that they are defend themselves. It looks to me like we are labeling the Jews as oppressors when what they did was defend themselves.
Yeah, it's very odd, and when you look
Yeah.
at it, because they've been, it seems like they've been getting picked on since
Well, I admire
1939.
even though the Jews or Israel, the state of Israel is very successful in economically, militarily, and education. They're way up there. They're still an underdog
Mm-hmm.
because of the small size.
Numbers.
The numbers. And even like South Africa is down on them. And they were allies years ago,
Yeah.
even in some military development, I believe. I think they developed a submarine together or something like that, I've heard. But now, these countries like South Africa are easy to sway by some outside force. And let's face it, we as a nation and Israel has got to identify where the problem is. It is not the surrogates. It's not Hamas or Hezbollah, Houthis. It's whoever's using them. Because those three elements, there's more of them, they don't have any manufacturing base. They don't have anything. They're tribal, sort of. And so they don't make anything. Maybe in some garages they might be putting some drones together, but I think Iran is the one that's fueling the.
So they've got a country or two behind them.
Yeah, they do, and North Korea, China, Russia, our potential adversaries, our competitors in the economic and military world. They're using these elements like the Houthis and Hamas and Hezbollah to bring pressure on us and our allies.
And they use religion.
Oh,
Religion's
yeah.
you show me a war, probably show you religion.
There aren't many wars that haven't been fought without religion. And that's another one. We could probably stir up the pot, but it does keep me up at night thinking, well, wait a minute. There's been a few enemies that I've gone after that we both might be praying to God for help in this combat, and it's the same God.
Mm-hmm.
Who's he listening? Who are they listening to?
Yeah. Interesting.
It's amazing. Yeah. But it's gonna be a switch. I'm getting to where I'm probably not going to see the big change.
Why? Where are you going?
Well, I'm thinking it's going to take a few years, and I'm up there in age, whether you realize it or not. I know you do because you're getting old too. but Brad, common sense. You know, the responses I get to our program, the number one response is keep it up. It's a common sense approach. We don't have to have the facts that someone could dispute. I mean, like the precise numbers, but you get the concept. I don't know how many people that are agitating, creating unrest under the umbrella of anti-Semitism. I don't know how many there are, but there are some. One's too many. But they're creating a problem. And if you notice, it's a different segment of our population than our minorities that were looking for, their rights or fighting discrimination from police and all that. It's different. This is over here. It's almost like it's a wealthy side. People going to Harvard.
Yeah.
So none of them need anything. They've got something, So what they've done is taken a whole new segment of our population and caused an unrest there. That's what I think. It's going to be tough.
Is that just inherent with a free society that there's always going to be bad actors that are going to stir the pot because it's not run with an iron fist?
Well, I think there's always bad actors, but there's always people that got an idle mind and the human brain needs some activity, and they're going to come up with something. Mm-hmm. Let's say this world. Now I'm going to be criticized for saying there are people starving in this world. In some countries there are, and maybe in the United States, but they choose not to work, or they choose to spend the money that they're given on drugs or something, so the kids are starving. So take that aside. But we're a comfortable society. We're not worried about our retirement, our future. I mean, you could worry about it, but you could also do something about it. Like I telling people a school not long ago that this might be the best time in the history of our country to get a job right now. I know you'd hire somebody that would work, show up. You always do. You got some good people, but it's hard to get some work done. So what are they doing with their idle time?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a tough topic.
It's a tough one. I think once we get some calls in, we'll bring it up again. But in the meantime, I think more of the people need to ask the same question we're asking. Why is this happening? Look around. I don't know anybody that hates Jews. No. I mean, who? Why? And why would you?
Yeah. Just
because the difference in some religions it's not religious. This is not religious. The anti-Semitism is not a religious thing. They're not doing it. The Palestinians aren't doing it because, in fact, the Muslims recognize Jesus, mm-hmm. right? Moses, Muhammad, Jesus, they were all disciples in some of them's view. They were all walked the earth.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we're gonna not. I don't think it's gonna help me sleep tonight because I'm maybe even a little tougher because you didn't help me answer any questions, and I'm sitting here thinking about that. We got a big problem here, and I hope the administration is able to yank those visas from those troublemakers.
That's the bottom line. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't need rules against certain things. We just need common sense approached. And if you're starting trouble and you're a troublemaker, or you break the law, the mm-hmm. basic law, you should pay the price.
Well, we got enough laws, right? Yeah. Colorado is famous for creating laws. I mean, my gosh, we got a lot of laws there. I'd like to see us enforce some of the ones that we already have. You know, it's against the law to steal. It's against the law to rape. It's against the law to murder people. It's against the law, on and on and on. Mm-hmm. Now we got to have different parameters of a rape or a murder or whatever you know. I don't know. We overmanage stuff.
It's against a lot of smoke.
Yeah, just a lot of smoke. But anyway, let's think about this thing and give us a call if you got the answer to help us out, and we'll definitely talk about it. Yep. I think putting up with this stuff that's going on in universities is tolerating poor behavior. And just remember, tolerance is a character flaw.
Just because no one knows doesn't mean it isn't true.